Mine. Oh, you look better than me.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Segment 2. So, hi, welcome to the Christmas Love Texas show and podcast tonight. And we are going to have a very interesting conversation about education reform.
Yes.
Ooh.
And it's happening in Texas. We can't run from it, y'all.
Right.
It's happening.
So we're going to introduce our guests. So we have
Raquel Down.
Miss Raquel. Miss Raquel is an avid fighter. She once was a teacher in HISD, and now she is a parent advocate and a community advocate. Yeah.
We need those parents to put on the line.
So, and then we have our favorite
conservative. We got our favorite conservative.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Branch Jr. I'm also a current educator, and I'm the newly named Texas State Director for the Black Conservative Federation, also known as BCF.
Okay, for BCF. Yay, John Branch. Okay.
And then, of course, it's me and Crystal. So,
that's Rebecca.
So tonight we want to get this started. One of the hottest topics that is in the state of Texas right now, and everybody has an opinion, are the coveted or uncoveted or however you want to
controversial
vouchers. Now, the voucher argument is pretty unique in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it's unique because you have people on both sides of the aisle who do not want this.
Yes.
The majority on both sides of the aisle do not want this. For the most part, if you go on our governor's Facebook page, which I had the fortunate or unfortunate task to do today. I read a lot of the comments, and a lot of the comments were coming from consequently his own party.
Well, and let me say this.
That were not good.
And let me jump in, Rebecca, because we always try to do this, and I think it's important to do this. We have a definite opinion on this, and like I said last week, I'm a public school teacher. All of my teaching experience has been in public school. Educated in a private Christian schools.
Yeah, you definitely come from a unique background.
Yes. And however, it's my choice to choose to be in public schools. And it was in turn my mother's choice for me to be educated in the way that I was. But it's always important, regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, that you have information and you can at least listen to what someone else is saying and why their perspective may be the way it is. Because people have different life circumstances that colors all of our perspectives. So we've talked about how we have felt about school vouchers or the school choice program, and we simply want someone to come on to kind of tell us how the other side is thinking and why they are feeling that this is going to be the best solution.
But before we dive into the argument, let me say this.
I'm not going to argue. We're going to put all of our perspectives on the table.
I'm sorry.
No arguments.
But no.
Right.
So before we get our arguments and our perspectives on the table, let me say this. Because people are getting confused, and I want to clear up confusion. Because I've even had friends to call me and was like, "Well, we already have school choice. What are they talking about?"
Okay.
School choice is a decoded word for vouchers.
Yes.
Okay. Let me say that again. Yes, we already have school choice in the state of Texas. School choice has been a thing for 20 plus years.
And tell us how. Tell us what you mean by that.
Okay, so when we say school choice, your child doesn't necessarily have to go to their neighborhood school.
In some districts.
In some
yes.
In some districts. So So I would take HISD because it's the largest school
Mhm.
district in Houston and it's the one mostly everybody can relate to.
And they can choose.
Right. School choice is very prevalent in that district. So if you are, they have certain specialized schools, they call specialized and unique schools. You
Uh-huh.
can help me with the terminology. Special and unique schools. So if your child has an artsy background, they
Engineering.
yeah, if they have an artsy background, I just yeah.
Language.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, there are schools for those children, and if those schools are not located in your neighborhood school district, I mean, in your neighborhood, then you have the
Options.
options to send your child elsewhere.
Mhm.
And if you don't like any of the ISD options, there is a charter option for you, which is still under public schools because they still receive
Yes.
public funding.
They do. They do.
So, and then if you are a parent that says both of these, you can pay and send your children to private schools.
Yes.
And if you say, you know what, I don't want my child in any, right, that's what I'm saying. I don't want my child in any institutional school. There's always the homeschool.
That's
option.
right. That's right.
Now, they're the only options you got. It is what it is. But in Texas, you have those options. So yes, school choice is it's and language matters. You know, we all can
Yeah,
agree that
that's true.
sometimes when we want things not understood or when we want things to go our way, we'll covet it in a language where it's, you know, not understandable.
And with that being said, Rebecca.
So I just want to clear that up for all of the people out there who's like, but I don't understand. School choice is referring to vouchers.
Yeah.
So,
Palm Branch.
Yes, ma'am.
This is where the confusion comes in for us.
Sure.
I am a person, I don't have children.
Mhm.
However, I teach in a public school in Texas.
Mhm.
Regardless of whether or not I have children, I pay for money to go into
Right.
schools, all schools in Texas.
Right.
And my mother made the choice
Mhm.
when I was coming along, this was many moons ago,
Not that long ago.
that, thank you, John, many moons ago, that because my sister went to public school. My sister chose to go to public school. But when I was put into a private school, it was because I needed some remedial help in math.
Mhm.
Okay. And that was back before they had like school tutorials in schools. You had to go hire a tutor somewhere. So I was put into a private school.
Right.
And I ended up, having friends and everything there. And when we got ready to go into high school, all the people at that school kind of applied to go to the same. All the girls went to the girls' school, and most of the boys went to the boys' school, and there you had it. And that's how I ended up in the high school that I was in. But my sister said, and my mother said, "Well, Kim, do you want to also go to this high school?" And she said, "Absolutely not," because she had been accepted previous years to the first. It was the first inaugural class. I'm sorry, the second. It's not inaugural, but the second class of what HISD had at the time, which was called the Vanguard program. This was back in the early 70s. She was the second Vanguard program student to come through. And that's when that program, it was, these specialized programs, now they call it magnet programs.
Mhm.
But these specialized programs, they had teachers who were vetted and came in from universities, and they really put a lot into having these types of programs in public schools.
Right.
And they could, it wasn't like it is like it was when I left HISD, where you had these neighborhood Vanguard programs, and it really wasn't the same kind of thing.
Right.
These were rigorous programs, and many times kids who went into that program in the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, it was too tough, and they said, "I want to go into,
Right.
But she had the option of being in a program funded by my mothers and every other citizen, tax dollars
Mhm.
within her public school
Mhm.
to be able to still get that kind of education.
Mhm.
And I think the frustration that a lot of people have right now
Mhm.
is, so what I'm saying to you is that I can appreciate public schools and private schools.
Sure.
Okay. But my frustration
Mhm.
comes from my mother had to allocate money from somewhere else so that I could go to school.
Right.
So we didn't always have the newest car. She's never been a car type person anyway, but it was the kind of thing that money had to be allocated, but that was a choice that she decided, you know what?
Right.
I'm going to,
What was
I'm going to
important
place,
to her?
Sure.
I'm going to place this money here because my daughter needs more help in math.
Okay.
Okay. But now we have a situation whereby the school that I came from, we had 60% of our students, this is when Rebecca and I taught at the same school over in East Houston, who were part of a program called Backpack Buddies.
Okay.
And these students, it was done in such a great, discreet way. But these students, every Friday, they came down with their backpacks,
Mhm.
and the people in the pantry, in the food pantry, that
Was
we partnered with the Houston Food
Bank.
Bank, yeah. And they load that backpack up to make
Sure.
sure that family had food over the weekend.
Right.
And some of those families would not have eaten
Cool.
had that not been the case.
Mhm.
And you look at this kind of thing being taken from those people who really need it. And many times those kids could not have, they come to school in the mornings and they come by my classroom still now. Miss, do you have anything to eat? Do you have anything to eat?
Oh, and I remember I used to keep a drawer full of snacks.
That's right.
Just thinking, hey, it's 3 o'clock. Come, cause you about to be a whole fool in here.
Yeah.
So like,
Gotcha.
But John, kind of,
children can't
yeah.
pay attention, so I mean,
That's
I
right.
think most teachers do that, they have like an emergency stash of like snacks or
Waters,
waters.
yeah. So John, kind of tell me where the more conservative Texans are standing on this, and do you think that they have a deaf ear to what we're saying?
Well, here's my experience with this. I didn't grow up in Texas. I grew up outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And and the first suburb I grew up in was Country Club Hills, which is south suburbs. This happened right when Section 8 was first taking place in Country Club Hills. And for those people who know what Section 8 is, you know where I'm about to go with this. If
Go
I
ahead and explain Section 8.
Okay, basically, loosely, I guess loosely defined. Basically, it's like Section 8. People like move like from the city out to like the suburban areas.
Okay. And it's subsidized
Yes.
by the government.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening was that a lot of those elements, because they tore down those projects and stuff too on the south side,
Yes.
they all moved down south,
Right.
and that element came with them. Now, with that being said, I grew up and I had a very bad stutter.
Okay.
I was bullied a lot when I was younger too.
Okay.
Now, my high school was walking distance from where my parents' house was.
Okay.
If I stayed at that high school, I probably would have been dead
Wow.
because I either would have killed myself or I would have hurt somebody,
Yeah.
and then something would have happened to me.
Right.
Matter of fact, I played different kind of sports just so I can avoid the bullies coming home.
Exactly.
So that was my world growing up.
Okay.
Now, it would have been nice to have had a choice to say where to go, because guess what? That school, the neighborhood school, a lot of good classes there, like science classes, because I knew I was going to be a scientist growing up. I knew that was going to happen.
Mhm.
But the elements that were there.
Right.
So you had the bullying that was happening with me. You had uptick in crime taking place in that neighborhood as well.
Okay.
So it became a very dangerous place to go. Matter of fact, and so it would have been nice to have had a choice where to go. Now, luckily for myself, we were able to move
Okay.
to a different neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suburb
Your parents had the means.
we had the means to move.
Okay.
But think about everyone else who did not have the means, who were stuck at that neighborhood school
Okay.
where people might have, because a kid who I grew up with who was in neighborhood. I think he was there before 6. I don't remember or not.
Mhm.
But he actually ended up killing somebody,
Wow.
and he went to jail.
You knew him?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Another kid I knew involved with like home burglaries, breaking into people's houses.
Mhm.
And I think around the same time, there was a shooting that took place at one of the games. And because things were so bad in that suburb, all the games had to be played because like usually those Friday night game, Friday like 7 to 7:30,
Mhm.
and then the schools that did not have lights, all their games were Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Because it couldn't get dark on you.
Right, couldn't get dark. And so because the way this school was, things got so bad that every single game they played, home and away, had to be Saturday at 1 in the afternoon.
Whoa.
So if I didn't have the means to move,
Mm-hmm.
it probably would have been nice to have the choice to go somewhere else. Because, like speaking as a conservative, for example, we want what's best for the families. Now, check this out. Your neighborhood school could be the best choice.
Yeah.
It could be the best
Yeah.
choice. And a lot of times it is the best choice from where you are.
Yeah.
But sometimes it may not be. And that's okay. To have that choice go somewhere else. But I think the thing that's also the vouchers thing is too that a lot of people don't want to talk about because others things up a little bit. I think the thing about vouchers and everything else is going to make us, the community, whether it's like the parents, the schools, the leadership, have to have a real adult conversation about what is happening in our schools and in our banks.
Well, and I'm gonna let Raquel chime in a little bit, because she's sat in the seat and position of a parent and a teacher
Right.
in HISD.
Mhm.
And I think what a lot of the frustration that a lot of people have seemed to express
Mhm.
is that vouchers there will be a lotto system
Mhm.
for these vouchers. And because they're taxpayers, private school parents will have an opportunity
Mhm.
to submit their names in the hat
I get that.
for the vouchers too.
But
That's-
I'm sorry, but the other side of the argument is a lot of parents at private schools, and they've made this clearly known that they don't want outside children
Well, hang on, let me finish.
in their
Okay,
private schools.
they've got, they can put their name in the kitty to
Mhm.
possibly be selected.
Mhm.
Okay. A lot of people's frustration that has spoken to me has been that why in the world would we give parents who already have the means to send their kids to these private schools because they're already there an additional amount of money, which just becomes a discount for them? So, just like I said in one of my podcasts, that extra $10,000, well, heck, we can go to Dubai this summer as a family because we've got this extra, so we're not pinched, like we were before. And the second part is this: if the voucher is $10,000 now, John, I don't know. I can only speak for what my experience has
Sure.
been.
Sure.
Back when I was in high school,
Mhm.
a while ago, it's been some decades ago, the tuition it may have exceeded a couple of $1,000s
Mhm.
a month.
Mhm.
And the voucher is $10,000. What if I've got 3 children and we were so blessed as to be selected to have 3 vouchers for that household?
Here's what we'll say about that piece,
Yeah.
because I think you mentioned something
Uh-huh.
that a lot of people are not really discussing.
Mhm.
The one thing that another thing for the conservatives let's talk about too is that improving our schools.
Mhm.
We talk about the people having options to go somewhere else. But one thing that gets lost in translation with this is the conditions of the district that leads to people want to leave in the first place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This, I think it was like 2015, I think it was like the bill written by Representative Harold Dutton, and when she talked about this. And I read Dutton's bill.
Mhm.
He wasn't wrong.
No?
So the question I have is that, okay, why would you knowingly hire people who you knew were not qualified? And I'll go one step further with this. You have people who've been on these boards that ran them into the ground. You've been on some of these areas in which you have people being hired because you want to go.
Mhm.
Well, I want to go there with this one.
Mhm.
There's someone's frat brother.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
There's
yeah.
someone's sorority sister.
Yeah.
There's someone's side piece. Oops, I said oops.
No qualification.
I said that part out loud. I'm so sorry about that, but still,
But that,
you're
you know,
bringing people in.
Well, hey,
Don't know
side
what
pieces
they
gotta
doing.
work too.
I'm just saying, you got some people.
Are you speaking for I am. Because you know, you better clarify that.
No, I'm just saying, they get a check too. Everybody got to live.
My side piece.
Everybody got to live. But you're right. You're
We're
right.
sitting here and we're trying to talk about, okay, well, how come parents get money, stuff like that, they don't feel a pinch, but no one is discussing the conditions that led to this in the first place. We need to have that discussion, because if those things were not happening, if you didn't have
We wouldn't be
people,
here. Yeah.
we wouldn't be talking about this. But of
Yeah.
course, we're here because people made bad choices, willingly made bad choices to a certain degree, continuously made bad choices. And then something else also, and
Year
see,
after year.
I want to go, there was something else too.
Yeah.
Failing schools pays. It's very profitable
Yeah, we said that.
because there's
Poor
something.
pays.
Yeah, poor pays, because there's something called, as I love this term, as I do my writing, so that's kind of like things a little bit. There's something called administrative fees.
Yeah.
Think about how many people who are supposed to be there for you, I will
Yeah.
leave it there, are getting these grants to fix up these schools, and they're getting these contracts for their buddies, for their friends, frat brothers, whatever, and they're getting paid. Nothing happens to the school, but you're basically bleeding
Yeah.
the public, I guess, the taxpayers dry. So how can people talk about what this family's going to get to make a choice to go to school, and the people who we keep electing over and over again keep bleeding and stealing from you to get their pockets fatter and pay for things for election campaigns?
So let's put that word out there, because we'll come back to it.
Sure.
Accountability.
Mhm.
Raquel, where do you sit?
So, similar to both of y'all, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and I was in the south central side of San Antonio. So I grew up I was Hillcrest Elementary,
Okay.
and then my mom had gotten married. My stepdad wound up adopting me,
Okay.
and we moved near the Air Force Base.
Okay. I know where that is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Five Palms, and it was at the time, I guess, like, you don't know these things because you're a kid.
Yeah.
But I guess it was considered like a hood school or whatever.
Okay. The Five Palms was.
Both are.
Okay, both of them. That's what I was going to ask. Were they
I
different?
felt that regardless, our teachers, we got to do a lot of awesome things. I liked my teachers.
Yeah.
And I think even as an adult, even presently, like, it's kind of silly, but I still have like these in my head conversations. Like, I wonder what, like, this, I had a science teacher named Miss Stafford, and I'm like, I wonder what she would say in the situation, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was bullied a lot. I'm a bit unique, or you know, I have I guess neurodivergencies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Neurodivergent.
you know, you stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've always been into art. Always been kind of like that kid. So when I was able to have teachers that cater to that, and I wasn't going to a fancy school, it's just I feel that maybe some places that's lacking, because it's like we just need the position to fill.
Yeah.
And I don't see that, like, so when I wound up going to middle school, that was a little bit, I think middle school is when you say tough middle school, you got injuries. Because I did middle school, and I don't think I'll ever go back. I'm just saying, it's rough. And it's not necessarily the kids, it's just there's, I think, too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think
Because middle school make me question my existence every day.
yeah,
Okay.
because I think there's a lot of admin that can't agree on things, and it's a power trip. And how you said, yeah, they are hiring their friends, and it's not for the children. There's conversations about for the children, and they may be spitting some things for the kids, but like I said, we got materials and stuff, or they'll be able to fund this thing or that thing, but why are more than half the schools without working air conditioners? There are other districts that don't have that situation and they're smaller. So I am disappointed in finding that out. I thought maybe it's a universal thing. So when I was younger,
It's poor management,
yeah, it's,
lack of accountability.
and you
That's a
know,
cuss word sometimes.
I grew up in gang era. San Antonio at the time, this is like the late nineties, early 2000s. There was a high teen pregnancy rate.
Yeah.
We had the highest in the nation.
I remember those days, yeah.
Gang violence is very prominent. You couldn't even go to the movies and look at people without.
It being a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was in 8th grade. I had 2 classmates. They wound up getting arrested. It's a big news article. My yearbook was dedicated to gang or stop the violence because one kid murdered him and his brother murdered a classmate of mine
Oh, wow.
and his cousin. They drug him in a truck
Oh, my
on Military
gosh.
Drive, and then
That was rough. That's rough.
they
Okay.
shot him execution style. Like we didn't even know what that like. They took out the eyes from my classmate and his cousin's tongue.
Wow.
It was a drug thing, and they arrested. I remember the cops coming in. So that happened that year, and then
That's gotta be terrifying.
it was scary. And there was like drive-bys and stuff. And then I remember my best friend. She was like the Lisa Simpson of the group.
Yeah.
Like really GT student.
Yes.
And she had told me she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was raised until 5 by a single parent. And I saw like, I'm my mom's only kid. I
Yeah.
have 2 sisters from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I saw how my mom struggled, and I asked her to go to a private school. I wanted to go to an all-girls school, and I said, I was so afraid of being. Now in retrospect, I think of that. I don't think I would have been influenced, but it was scary.
That's a lot to process for a teenage mind. That's a lot to process. Not just, and you want to be sympathetic to your friend, but then the next week you hear about, the classmate getting dragged. That's a lot of information to process.
It was just, it was a lot. Like that was my 8th grade year, and I wanted to go to this really expensive school. It was an all-girls school called UIW, or it was Incarnate Word.
Yeah.
And it is a well-known school. They have kids, girls from all over the world that are boarding there. And I was like, that would be so cool. I can meet someone from another country.
Would your mom have been able to afford that?
So,
With a voucher. With a voucher.
my mom, well, she was able to afford to take me to this other school that was smaller. It was ran by nuns. And it was just budgeting. Like I said, I was blessed in that sense. My mom, I think because she didn't get to do the things, like she does have a bachelor's, like while she was raising me, working full time, she put herself to school.
Right.
When I graduated high school, she graduated college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I lost the first in my family to get the scholarship because she graduated six months before me. But it was still something amazing. Like I don't know if I would ever be as amazing as my mom. Like she's just really strong, and I don't even to this day. I'm like I have 2 small kids, and I'm like I don't know how you did it. I have support, like.
Well, but Raquel, let's talk about that for a minute because you actually mentioned 2 kind of separate sides of the coin there, in that you were in a situation where it was almost a matter of safety.
Scary, yeah, it's scary.
It's a matter of safety.
Right.
And do you think that if you had been in your mom's situation at that time, that you would have supported a voucher type system to help your mom get you into a safer?
I think it's the language. So I think if my mom researches a lot, but when you first hear it, it does sound desirable. It's like, oh, I can get my kid to go to this school.
Yeah.
But understanding because she does have a financial background.
Right.
Where is that money going there? And you can just so y'all know, out there, you can send your kid to a private school, even if it's a non-religious one. They have scholarships and grants,
They do.
and your child has to pass. Just like when you want to go to like TH Rogers and things,
Yeah, you have
pass
an
a certain
entrance exam.
test.
You have an entrance exam.
And if they feel that this child will be a
Asset.
that's the best, yeah, an asset to their campus, they will give you a grant. We had
Yeah.
with that being said, because I've been around children from both sides. I went to a public school and then I went to these private schools.
Right.
And then after the one with the nuns, there's a joke with you don't have nuns run campuses because they do a lot of charity. We were San Franciscan nuns, so they're all about charity.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of
Ours were
kids.
Dominican. They were about the teachers.
Yeah.
They were teachers. Yeah.
So it's like they wound up not making enough money. So my last year I had to go to a different private school.
Yeah.
And I went to a really rich, well-to-do private school for my last year. And the kids do know when you are not a rich kid. They know when you're a scholarship kid. They know when you're a grant kid. Because your kids are kids, so there's no such thing of, oh, only the good kids are at the private school. No, they'll probably do heavier drugs because they'll have that.
They have the access to
They
it.
have access.
Well,
And
I want to tell my story.
yeah, now that they're talking about.
No,
We know John's, we know Raquel's, we know mine.
so I really don't have a story. I don't. So I don't. I went to all neighborhood schools.
Yeah.
My parents were professional people.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time I grew up in
the university.
yeah, I said I grew up in the hood, but I'm not hood because I had that's what I tell people all the time. I had the hood aesthetic though. But I tell people that all the time and they get a good kick out of that when I say that. But the reason I say that is because my parents were well to do. We were upper middle class. My dad was in the financial industry. My mom worked for Prairie A&M University. So it was like, my godmother made a suggestion, and I love my godmommy. She's so sweet. But my godmother made a suggestion. I didn't find this out until I was actually in college. My godmother made a suggestion to my parents when I was in high school. Why don't you take, and Becky is like my childhood name. Why don't you take Becky out of these public schools and put her in private school? Because she'll have a much better experience with children who grew up like her. Like that was, and my godmother wasn't looking down on the situation. She was just saying, put her somewhere where she's with other children of professional parents.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna tell you what my mom and what my dad's response was because it's ugly, but I'm a paraphrase. No, he was like, no, she's going to stay where she is because public schools represent the real world, and she's not going to be able to separate herself in the real world. So she needs to understand early that she's with other people,
Right.
and other people that might not have grown up like her, who didn't have the same privileges as her.
Well,
So
Rebecca, we got to pick John's brain because
Uh-oh.
yeah, we got to pick John's brain. Now, John, hearing the kind of things that we just discussed,
Sure.
tell us when you sit around the table with many of your colleagues, tell us what is their retort when they hear the type of resistance that may have to do with this, and this has been placed on the table
Sure.
for this always comes up. I have got, hypothetically,
Sure.
I have got 3 kids. We were blessed enough to be selected just in that general lotto.
Sure.
Oh, what a blessing. We hit 3 times. We got $10,000 for each of our students to go to St. Elsewhere. Okay? So the tuition for each student at St. Elsewhere is going to be $32,000 a year.
Right.
Where am I going to come up with that additional
Right.
$22,000 per student
Well, one thing I
to
will.
send them to St. Elsewhere because we really want to go?
Well, one thing I will say is that the vouchers at least gives them, I guess, like something. I guess because okay, picture 32,000, right?
Yeah.
Will 32,000 sound better with no money available for you to go somewhere else? Or with the 10,000, it will kind of help, or it maybe could help help open the door to say other options because.
Like what? Like what other
Well,
options?
well, here's what I'll say about that.
Mhm.
Because I think that sometimes it's about the wording. Like the word voucher kind of gets a bad rep because of what it entails.
Okay.
But the one thing that we are saying is that okay, because I mentioned school that I went to growing up.
Okay.
I chose. Well, actually, I couldn't look at the district at the time, of course, but I did have to pay extra for it.
Okay.
But my parents were prepared, just in case they actually have to open up the pocketbook and pay. I was like, this is so much worry about getting jumped every day, stuff like that. So yeah, those options were available because like my dad was an architect, mom was a chemist, polymer chemist. Of course, they wanted teaching and second careers later on in life.
Right.
But the one thing that we were prepared to do is okay, we're prepared to go down this and actually spend this money to do these things. Now,
You an exception.
well, yes and no. And I say that because of the fact that because like a lot of people did end up moving from that neighborhood because of all the stuff that was happening.
And I've heard that about some Chicago neighborhoods.
Exactly. And then of course when that people moved out, it forced them to say, okay, guys, look, we gotta do something about this. Like, matter of fact, I'll use our Texas school for example though too, because right when the takeover stuff's gonna happen, they had like the different like town halls and stuff like that, be like protesting takeovers and stuff. And I went with my good friends on with this, Gary Monroe. I miss him by the way. We had conversations about this. And the one question that I always asked, where was the same outrage 10 years ago? And here's where I bring that up.
Yeah.
Because people talk about it's like, okay, well, we're mad about the takeover taking place. We're mad about these things happening. But the one thing that people say is, okay, what's happening in our neighborhoods? Kids are being truant. Now, if your kid or yourself was truant during that age, if you know things were happening in several schools across, if you know that there's a violence issue, if you know that all things are happening.
What's being done about it?
What's being done about it. And then something along this. Either someone will say, hey, clean up this mess or we'll do it for you.
Yeah, and the state has a right to do that.
Correct. And
yes.
So it's
no, but now they do. Because with the law being passed. Because at first, that just came along.
Here's the thing. This is all that I'm saying. There has to be an element of accountability. And if the state is funding part of education in these districts, they have a right to see how their money is being spent or if it's not being spent.
Well, first of all, we're paying taxes.
Yes.
So let's start there.
That's right.
It's not the state giving money. We're actually paying property taxes.
Yeah.
So
and some of the state's education money comes down from the federal government.
It does. But what I'm saying is they're not totally. That's why I have a problem with that, because they're not. The state is not totally funding schools.
I don't have a problem with the state having accountability, but here's the thing.
No. I don't have a
Hang on 1 second. This is all that I'm saying. Somebody needs to have accountability. Okay, but do I believe that we should all have a seat at the table in deciding who has that accountability? Yes.
I agree.
Because this has always been my thing as a public educator.
Yeah.
And I have to say this because it angers me. Anger is not the word I wanted to use. It's the P word.
Yeah.
All the time. We feeding kids, we giving them clothes, we giving them shoes, we giving them this. And Crystal, I got a heart of gold. I don't have a problem helping the less fortunate.
Come on.
That's what God has instilled in all of us to do.
More obligation.
Right. But my problem is I go to this ballot every November for state, local, and national.
Yeah.
You keep coming in my neighborhood, you keep blowing up my phone, you keep saying, vote for me.
Let me have this one.
Vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. And I go do it, and I'm still saying the same. At some point,
or not seeing things change.
or not seeing things. At some point, when are the politicians are going to be responsible?
We gotta throw out the old ones and get in a new goal.
Because at this point, why do I keep electing you
Yeah.
and there is nothing changing?
Can I have this one, please?
Let him have.
Let me tell you the reason why this keeps happening.
Yes.
And I have these conversations a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why things don't change is because you're not making them. Here's what I mean by that. You will have people who they might have voted for one side or one candidate or one person over and over and over again. Their thing is vote D no matter what. Their thing is like
Or R.
them too. Them too.
Mhm.
I guess I'm gonna go to well, that's what I'm trying to make with this stuff, right? Is that you'll say, hey, brother, hey, sister, hey girl, etc. You know, hey, come vote for me and stuff. Come vote for me because I think it was like when because one year, and I forgot what the last session, previous session, where they wanted to have a protest on the steps of the Capitol after the education bill. So okay, you're setting this protest up 2 weeks after the bill had passed. So
It was optical. Yeah, it was.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so this is what happens here, right? Because these politicians, they prey upon you saying, oh my God,
And your
we're
emotions.
so your emotions, stuff that. But and see, this is the funny part about this. I mentioned Dutton's bill earlier, right? All these same people who are talking about this stuff, ask them if they voted for that bill or not.
Yeah.
They all voted for it.
Yeah. But
one guy said he didn't read the bill.
And the thing, that's what I was gonna say. You know, we have been in a position where we are, and that's what I'm saying, John and Rebecca and Raquel.
Mhm.
I understand the difficult position that lawmakers are in. I know, and I respect the fact that they got to make difficult decisions. However, if you come to a place in your career or in your life or in your position where you have come to a place of ineffectiveness and efficiency, you have the character to step away.
But let me say this too. Let me add
It's a character thing.
your thoughts, Mr. Correct.
But this
We
is
talk about this all
yeah,
the
but
time.
one of the things that I was saying that upset me is that because the onus is always on us as public school teachers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
That's not fair either.
teachers,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying.
That's not fair.
And all of
Teachers,
us, yeah, FYI, all of us here.
yeah,
Teachers.
and
Yeah.
that's what irks me because I see teachers coming in and out of the building,
Yeah.
coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning and not leaving to
7:30,
8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Prepping and planning and doing everything that they supposed to do, going beyond, and it's still not enough.
Let me take
And that's why I'm saying everybody wants to say, well, pay teachers, and I'm not against that. Let me say that. That caveat. I am not against paying teachers extra because y'all know me. I say that to the high heavens. I think teachers need to be making at least $150,000 a year. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that every single time it's always, well, teachers are not qualified or teachers are not doing that, or what are the teachers
But
doing?
honestly,
We're indoctrinating the kids. That's it.
Right.
Even though we
What
can't
if
get-
teachers-
we're supposed to be indoctrinating the kids.
Yeah.
Even though we can't get them to do their work or get on their
Right.
phone.
What are
but
the
you know,
teachers
we're-
doing? Oh, when you have all of these kids that are failing, it's a case that's going on right now, and I believe it's in Illinois right now, where there's somebody else in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. You're right, where there's a young lady that's suing the school district because she graduated with a 3.75 and can't read and write. And then, you know what was the first thing that was said?
Watch this.
What was the teachers doing?
Watch this. No. Watch this one, right?
What was the teachers doing? What was the teachers doing? And I'm telling people, because a lot of people will come in my inbox with it, and I'm telling people, I said, do y'all not understand? I said, do y'all not understand? A lot of times, teachers are giving the failing grades. Teachers are writing the recommendations for special education. Right.
Yeah.
Teachers are telling them this. Teachers are saying no.
They've been passed through anyway.
Right. They cannot go to the next grade. But what happens?
They get
District
passed.
override, administration override. And then at the end of the day, the district nor the administrators get blamed. Who get blamed? We get blamed.
Let's have one of those, and Sam mentioned earlier, like tough adult conversations that we don't want to have. Previous school district I was at,
Mhm.
one of my former students came back. He was at U of H, major in engineering, something like that. So he's taking like one of his like chemistry classes.
Yeah.
And he says, Mr. Branch, I wish you would have been harder on us. I said, you're right. No, watch this up. I said, Trent, but let me ask you a question. I wanted to be harder on you. But what would have happened if I would have been harder on you? Would you have taken it, or would you have ran and complained to your mommy and your daddy, or to the principal's spouse to be
Too hard.
being tougher on you? I think that situations like that right there, and I've seen this. I've heard of stories in some school districts where parents have brought attorneys to parent-teacher conferences
Are you serious?
as a heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was the argument? What did they bring them there for?
Well, they're bringing there
They think you're
because
too tough on the kids?
well, here's the thing. Their kid wants to get into this university.
Yeah.
This kid wants to qualify for a scholarship. Their kid wants to do whatever kind of thing. Their kid might lose their scholarship for a football scholarship. I actually had, as I was living in Florida, I was on a campus where a kid basically did nothing, but he was going to be the school's first Division I signee. And he was allowed to drop my class because he was doing any work. He was failing. And the mom wanted to keep with us and said, no, he's got to learn this stuff. But pressure came from up above to try to do something to get this kid to sign that letter of intent so they could all smile at him and say, hey,
Media.
this is where we are. But see, getting to what you said earlier about the, I guess, the case and stuff, this is what happens when priorities, because a lot of times talk about what teachers are doing, and see, you talked about politicians step aside. I might step in. That's going to be for another show another time.
Yeah.
With that being said, this is when people need to look in the mirror
Yeah.
and say, what role are you playing? Are you really preparing your kid, or do you not want to deal with the fact that maybe little Johnny is having issues in the classroom and they don't want to deal with it, so they want to blame someone else instead of saying, hey, you know what, maybe we could be doing something different. But today's school, I think that sometimes people are so sensitive. They
Yeah.
think that any criticism is attack on them as a person.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of parents feel.
That's
how a
right.
lot of
That's
parents
right.
feel.
And you know, the thing about it is, let's be clear.
Sure.
A lot of the issues that the kids come to us with in the classroom, I'm going to say 95% of those issues are stemming from something at home. But we just have to deal with them. We have to deal with it when they get there.
And that's what,
I know.
that's one of the things that has irked me for a long time in education. Like, why is it always our responsibility to deal with everything?
Because
And everything is always pushed off on us,
Yeah.
right? I just to be real frank, and I know we're pressed for time, but a situation where I had a child that was needed to be in special education.
Mhm.
I got all the teachers together. We was like, the paperwork, a book about. But we
Yeah.
was like, you know what?
Yeah.
But because we knew that the child was trying their hardest,
Yes.
we was just like, you know what? He's worth it.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it took us 3 weeks
Mm.
to get that paperwork done for the child. The mom was happy because she wanted
wanted services.
Right. She was working 3 jobs.
Oh, you went there. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
But no. Mom was working 3 jobs.
Okay.
Mom just was like, I know he tries.
Yeah.
And she wasn't lying because he tries. In tears, thank y'all for stepping in and helping because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. Do you not know that paperwork got rejected?
Stop.
I believe it.
And I personally marched my little loud voice, switching hips to figure out why did this child's paperwork get rejected. And it was told to me, and I kid you not,
It should be good.
we have too many kids in special education.
Yeah.
And we have met the quota
There we go.
for this year. So
Resubmit next year.
You want this one? Or...
Okay. Go ahead.
Start it. You can share
There you
it.
go.
do
Okay.
you not understand how livid?
I'll let you have this one. I'll jump in afterwards.
Go ahead, Raquel.
So, what I have found out, because I have a few family members that are needing things, so as a parent, and this is like and just what's best for kids. I'm not against any school choice, whether it be private, charter, or public.
Right.
My issue has always been that there's a poaching season by charters that try to get all the kids, and then by November,
A poaching season, yeah.
they kick them out, and then you get overpopulation, understaffed, because each child, so the taxes is one way that they get money, but they also get money from how many enrollments are in there.
Absolutely right.
That's why that 10 o'clock attendance.
10-15, it needs to be
What's
in.
the seats?
So it's like, that's supposed to be our salary, and then if it's a child that has special accommodations, that's supposed to pay for those resources, but then they're not getting that. So that comes into another play, when we do talk about, like, it kind of sums up with everything, when we do talk about vouchers and all that. What if you have someone that is like me, where I did need a little bit extra attention?
Right.
Well, I had to learn, the reason why I was successful in high school is because I learned how to pay attention and follow and study and use audio and visual and
Right.
hands-on skills
Yes.
to, thrive in a private school where it was smart, smarter, and smartest. No
Yeah.
one was not.
Because
smart,
they can reject,
Yeah.
you gotta be a certain level to even get in. Yeah.
So, as bad as, my middle school was, the teachers weren't. We were reading, I remember we were reading Shakespeare plays and trying to like dissect that language.
Yes.
We were reading
Yes.
Odysseys,
Yes.
like we were reading things that
My
were,
favorite book.
yeah, like
Watch Julius Caesar.
it was amazing, and I don't think that nobody gets into education. Hopefully, a majority of us get into education because maybe we want to be that teacher. Because I think we can all pinpoint a teacher, regardless of where we were.
Yeah.
They're like, I wish I could be like that, and I don't. I would like to not believe, even with everything I saw with HISD, that even now there are still people there that are just they're trying to fight it and be there for the kids.
But just to say, we've met the quota.
It's
This is a child
There's something
Yeah.
else that,
with disability.
See, and that's a person with the greed, and they don't want to do the hassle,
there's something,
and it's not about the kids at that point.
That's right.
there's something else at play here too, and this is very ugly. Let me ask y'all a question, because you're educators. For everyone that's diagnosed as SPED,
Mhm.
is there some kind of like a services that's goes to the families to help out and stuff like that? Help them just like with any sort of like thing, because
Educational.
educational, or it's like, I heard, as I gotta check my sources again, but it's like some sort of, I guess it's some kind of like exceptions or some kind of like special sort of like, I don't want to say voucher, that the voucher being overused right now, because like, some sort of like
Stipend?
benefits, something like of being citizen.
Like additional services
Yes.
that they're.
Right.
Yes, there are.
And
Yes, there are.
So
Do the
is that
Parents
being
do get
abused?
checks.
Is that being abused in
Parents
the
do.
system?
Parents do get checks for special education students.
Now is that being abused by these parents? Because you talked about quoting stuff, but now maybe we should quote and stuff. How many people are taking advantage of something they're going to call their kids SPED, well, they just might want to check?
Well,
I've seen that too. I've seen that
And
too.
that's the real, that's the same
Once
thing.
again, the conversation.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing about social services,
But with the SS, but I do know for sure,
Mhm.
even though I'm not special education certified, I've been around special education my whole life.
Mhm.
But they do get a stipend. Now, you don't have to take the stipend.
Sure.
Okay, you can reject it, because I had a brother in
Mhm.
special education, and my daddy was like, I'm not taking nothing from no government. That was just him.
Yeah.
Right.
I can afford to take care of my child and the services that he needs.
Right.
But you have some people that can't afford the services. And then you have some people, like you said, that are taking the check and not even taking their children to the services.
Yeah.
I've seen that play out.
Now, let me tell you what happens a lot. I'm a certified special education teacher too.
Right.
But let me say one, there are some things that have been done to try to supersede the misuse
Right.
that can happen in those areas. And a lot of times, what they'll do now, instead of actually putting a financial, attaching a financial, payment to it,
Mhm.
it'll just simply be set up to where the child shows up and they sign and they receive the service. So it's not they're not paid, where a parent has to go and find someone and pay them.
Well, and social,
Thing.
but with
Yeah.
those social services though,
Mhm.
not from the school, but from those social services.
Okay.
If your child has, whatever learning
Right,
disability, they have autism, all that stuff, that the state does give you, and if your child is
Okay, yeah,
enrolled
I've
in
heard of
special education, the state does give the parents stipends. So you may have a parent
Yeah.
that has 5 children and 3 of them have
I've seen it where it's 5 of them.
Well, I'm
You didn't want to say it?
I see what you're doing.
no, but I'm just telling you from the audience who may not know.
Right.
So you may have a family that has 5 children, and then they have
Everyone is,
3,
yeah.
or I'm being generous.
Okay.
They have 3 that are special education. Well, they will get a check covering an additional check covering those 3 children.
Right.
And I believe it's SSI.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a social
It
security.
is.
Yeah, okay. So that's what I'm saying. But like John says, because I've seen it, and I have seen it, I've seen it where parents are just, don't you go in there and pass that STAR test.
Mhm.
Because you passed that STAR test,
You may be taken out of sped.
and then my money is going to get cut off.
Well, that's a different show for a different day.
No, but I was just trying to explain to the audience.
Everyone sitting here, people can dispel that if they want to. Everyone sitting here knows that's the truth because you have people that abuse the system.
And it's
Okay,
all fault.
and it has been since the beginning of time.
Everything now with the
Yeah.
vouchers, it's all like one word that comes to mind: fallout. Everything that's happened out is fallout of everything that's been happening. Now we got the vouchers. Now we got everything else. It's like now you didn't put the genie out the bottle and you can't put it back in.
Okay,
I will,
yeah, go ahead.
I will say this, I think the most important thing to play back and forth with the vouchers and just assistance in school, we all have one thing for sure that's in common. We have parents that are the exception of the
Mhm.
mass that we get.
That's right.
Whether
Yeah.
it's an economic, whether it's education itself,
Yeah.
whether it's dedication.
That's right.
Yes.
A lot, unfortunately, and I try to say this in the best way when I explain, even when kids would ask me certain things, because I don't think parents intentionally don't care about their kids. I think we are products of
Sure.
what
Our
we're
investment. That's right.
If you were never
That's right.
shown
Mhm.
certain things, or if you were never taken, pride,
Mhm.
how are you to know that?
And instill it in your kids.
And I was in. It was when I was still working. I was after I graduated and before I got into education, and I still am. I'm a working artist, so I worked for an organization, a museum, and that's how I started working with kids. And I was doing substituting.
Yeah.
Because I was like, let me see, and I was getting into everything like
If I
what I
like
like,
it.
what
Yeah.
they-
Yeah, that's how I started
Me
that.
too.
Yeah.
So,
And I remember
really?
I had he was like, I was ready.
Actually, how I got in, and this is a story that as I was working in the private sector,
Mhm.
got laid off, which sucks, by the way.
Yeah.
And the one thing is, my parents told me about teaching and stuff,
Mhm.
and then of course I had to think about it. How many people looked like me that were teaching science and math growing up?
No, they needed to see you.
And
They
it's
needed to
like
see you.
you
Yeah.
talk to kids, they either want to be an athlete
Mhm.
or a rapper, and they feel to be a rapper, you got to go to jail.
Yeah.
Why?
We'll have
Exactly.
Instagram.
Exactly.
And they don't even want to be athletes no more. They want to be YouTube stars
Yep.
That's
and rappers.
Influencers.
Yeah.
the thing is that it's like I wanted people to say, hey, you know what, you can do. I mean, you could be the next Neil deGrasse Tyson. You could be the next
Yeah,
that kind of person too. And of course, the one thing that my father told me is, I don't know what this. He said, John, you have a moral obligation to go and help out your people.
That's true. We do.
That's why I'm here now, and it's like, I mean, it's like, that if I were tempted to go into the private sector, sure. But at the same time, though, it's like, I could be helping out the next generation, and to me, that's what keeps me going.
Okay, you know what, y'all, on this, and I want everybody to have a little bit of a last word on this.
Sure.
Now, we're gonna walk it back around to the vouchers because that's what people are, that's what we're gonna be in Austin talking about on
Monday.
Monday, okay? We're gonna be at the
Yeah.
steps of the Capitol. I'm not saying we're protesting.
I'm going to Wednesday, to talk to the
Okay.
so yeah, I get it.
Okay.
You going
okay,
Wednesday
yeah.
for what?
Yeah, he's a teacher
Talk to some
too.
people.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I got me set up with some other folks, so was it
Yeah.
some whole bunch of stuff, so
Oh.
I got a few meetings set up with some people.
Yeah. Okay, now, here's the thing. We're still at this place where those vouchers are right on the cliff. People on my side of the aisle are saying we've got to throw a Hail Mary pass and try to appeal to the census of our Republican.
But it's not just on our side of the aisle. It's on the Republican.
No, that's what I said. That's what I said. People on our side.
Super duper red and they're very against the.
But see, that's what I'm saying. People on our side have got to try to throw a Hail Mary pass over and try to convince, not convince, but try to have Republican voters understand our position on this. And our position is simply this. We need so much, and I think we're at a consensus right now, all of us at this table, that we are lacking in our public schools in Texas as far as needs being met, as far as the schools being able to prepare the kids in the way that they need to, the kids being able to test and be successful on basic tests. We are behind, and we've been sitting on our hands for a long time. Okay, now, but why would that money at this point be? Why should we be okay with it being allocated into a voucher system whereby other people who are not part of the public school sector, who can afford and who've made the choice to send their kids to private school, be part of that? And we don't have any problem with them sending them to private school. No one came and knocked on my mother's door and said, don't send her to private school.
Right.
Okay, but we are challenged by the fact that people who can afford to do this already are going to be, for lack of a better explanation, taking funds away from those that need it, even if that money, let's say we took it from the voucher system, if that money was reallocated, let's throw it in there with that emergency fund, okay? Reallocated and placed in a pool where we said, okay, we're gonna lock these lawmakers in a room, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans. We're gonna lock them in a room and have them come up with a way where we can revamp our public schools in a way where it's gonna be effective and have accountability in place, where they have chosen people, and those watchdogs have watchdogs, so that we can make our public schools all that they need to be. I don't have any problem with private schools. I love private schools, but I'm a public school teacher.
Wait a minute, before y'all answer any other question, I want to clarify something really quick. This is just a point of clarification.
Mhm.
Also, with those vouchers, we keep thinking in terms of ISDs, but vouchers will also affect charter
Charter
schools
schools,
too.
yes,
I don't think a lot of people are aware of that.
that are
So-
funded by public
Yeah,
dollars.
so
Even
any
smaller
school,
private schools.
right,
Yes.
so any schools that are funded by the state government will be affected by those vouchers. So that's included, I don't think a lot of people in the public
Yeah.
know that. That's also including the charter schools.
Yes,
I think
the state funds charter schools.
I think there's a couple of things at play here, because we're looking at this here through the eyes of Houston, City of Houston, the big metropolitan area. You have a lot of these representatives who represent people in very small towns.
Yes,
So
with no private schools in them.
I would also say to them, because like for them, they might only have one place to go. So the one thing that I would say, if you're going to go down this road,
Mhm.
make sure that you're speaking to their concerns too. Because one
Absolutely.
thing that people do,
Absolutely.
and of course, and I say my past life, I did like union organizing stuff like that when I was in grad school. And the one thing that I learned was learn how to tailor your speech to your audience.
Yeah.
I think the mistake that a lot of people make when they
That's
get to
right.
stuff like this, for example, right? We try to, we try to, we try to make our concern the same concern that someone might be saying in that
It's
condone
not.
shits, for
It's
example.
not.
It's
Yeah.
not the same,
That's right.
it's the same thing. So
Yeah.
I think that we need to, I think that this is going to take place. One, temper your approach to meet your audience, but then the other thing is, it's always about the best interest of the parent. Some parents may want one option, and then it's like, I lost my train of thought. That
That was loud. That was loud.
But
We're in an office building, guys.
yeah, but I will say that two things have to take place. It's what's in the best interest of the parent, the best interest of the parent and their kids, best for their interest of families. But then also, they're also, whether it's our school through or not, you still have to address how to make our neighborhood schools better and include that accountability. Because if that part does not occur, about you or not, the issue's not going to go away. You still have to fix the neighborhood schools and bring that accounting force, and that has to happen.
And I think, and that's the point I wanted to bring out too. I think that's the point why so many deep reds are against the vouchers, because you're in these small areas, in these small
The choices aren't there.
they don't have
Choices.
choices.
Yeah.
And their school districts, and we're talking about parents, their school districts are the number one employers in those towns.
That's right.
It's either city governments or
The school.
the school. So this is why this issue was such a big deal and why it's affecting all of us. I agree. We have our problems in Dallas and Houston and Austin and San Antonio.
They've got a different set of problems.
But they have a different set of problems
And
that's
they'll
going
camp
to
yeah.
yield
Yeah.
the same results
Yeah.
if these vouchers are passed.
Or maybe they might want the vouchers because they think they might help them in these areas too. So once again, you got to say, okay, you know what? How can we? I mean, that makes you got to speak to their concerns
Right.
as well.
But if they don't have
those small schools
that don't have those other options.
Yeah, because if you look at Bell County, because
And we can't, but we can't just say, oh, well, we can't say that because most of Texas is rural.
But if you want to put educate hat on for a second though, there has to be eventually, and of course, hopefully y'all can agree with on this part too.
Mm-hmm.
Because we keep talking about, okay, well, these people saying vote for myself, as you feel kind of, I guess, discouraged at the ballot box, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, hey, I might not vote for you next time.
There you go. Yeah.
Have that conversation.
Right.
And too many people say, oh, no, you can't vote against this person. He a good man. That kind of stuff. Yes, you can. So one thing, a lot of our communities, especially, I'm going to go a lot of our communities don't feel comfortable doing that.
But you know what? And not just us, not just us, John.
Sure.
But here's the thing, and I'm gonna go back to this. I know and I understand the place and the importance that good and fair and just lawmakers have in our society.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
we have to make sure that we hold them accountable for keeping us in the loop as far as what's going on.
Go to
For
office.
and not just that. And I said that when I was running for office a few years ago, Rebecca, I said this: it's too easy these days to have 100% communication with your constituents. How much does it cost to have a podcast on Instagram? Zero. How much does it have to have one on Facebook? Zero.
I do lives all the time.
Yeah. So if you want to be transparent with people and let people know what's going on. And part of that is letting people know the things that are going on that they may not like.
And on the flip side of that, I agree so much what you said. It's a conditional thing.
Mhm.
Most of us, on the flip side, most of us come from educated families in one sense or another.
Right.
We understand the power of voting.
valued it.
We understand the power of voting. We understand the power of education. We understand because
Yes.
we've seen it actively work
Right.
all of our lives. And this goes back to why people are not voting. I feel like a lot of times people just don't understand the power of, and I know we keep saying, well, we can't use it as an excuse because it's Facebook, it's Instagram, but if you have not been conditioned, and I'm a firm
That's
believer,
true. It's
if you
conditioning.
have not been conditioned to believe,
And the importance.
hey,
Mm-hmm.
18, two things I knew at 18. I was getting a voter registration card and I was going to the ballot and I was going to college.
Yeah.
Those were two things that was just
Give me
like,
some.
that,
Give me
that,
some.
that was not debatable.
Right.
That was not up for discussion. It was just, this is what you're going to do.
Mhm.
But how many people from how many backgrounds and families have not been told that listen? Who have not been discussed the importance of it?
May I make a confession here? My mother always taught me this way. I'm a person who was always, I've been a Democrat, okay? But my mother always told me this. She said, don't ever go into, you don't take for granted that everybody is going to stand for your principles.
Right.
I have never gone into a ballot box and voted a straight ticket.
Wow.
She said, I know a lot of people do that, but you know what? And I may, let me tell you, I may stay in there an extra 10 minutes, but I want to, because let me tell you, there have been some people who have been part of my party that I have not necessarily agreed with their tactics on how things are done. So I'm not going to give you a blanket vote
Come on.
just because of that. I'm not gonna do
But
that.
that goes back to my point though.
Yeah,
You can do
I'm just
that.
being honest.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
You can do that. I can do that if I choose to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can do it.
Yeah.
Like how many people have never had that conversation in the first place?
Yeah,
It is so many people. I'm 41 years old.
Yeah.
It is so many people at my age
right.
that don't know the issues, don't know what's
Don't
voting,
care.
don't know the difference, don't know what
That's
Congress
right.
do,
That's
don't
right.
know what the president do. They don't know nothing.
You wanna know why those good conversations don't happen though? Because
You're right.
somebody go somewhere else with this. One of the things too is that they'll say, let's stick together. But people are very, very, what we're looking for, very, very afraid of different thought processes.
But John,
But my point is, they not even at the thought process to have a different opinion.
but here's the thing. Let me tell you what. Let
She
me
got
tell
me
you.
there.
Rebecca is right. But let me say this: if people started voting their conscience, that would make our politicians a whole lot more accountable.
I agree.
Right.
But y'all are not understanding what I'm saying.
No,
They not even at that
No, I
point
get what you're saying.
to even under.
Yeah.
They don't have a clue about what's going on.
Yeah.
Me talking politics to them is like talking to this blank laptop.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not laptop.
Or like right away, like I even remember when I was at my school and they're like, be a teacher. Oh, I hate talking about like no, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to be in education.
Yes.
And that's how
Yes.
your own existence. Me, you, if you're a woman, if you were
right.
not white, if you were
That's
not
right.
rich,
That's right.
you wouldn't be here.
That's right.
So politics happens. Some kind of social thing.
And
happens for
Rebecca,
you to be here.
That's right. When back in 2022, when we did our research, we found that, and this is something y'all, all of us are teachers. When we're comfortable as teachers, when we're comfortable, we're so comfortable that we stay away from the polls. It's no big deal because nothing real different is going to happen anyway. That apathy is what has led us. And while we're comfortable as teachers, we should, if anybody should be out there voting in every election,
In droves.
it ought to be the educators.
But what I'm also
It doesn't
saying, is the ignorance that leads to apathy.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about what you don't know. You can't make decisions that you don't know. You can't if you don't even have the basic knowledge. Just like even with the Trump stimulus checks. Like, do you know how many people I had to say he did not give you those checks? That was Congress allocating those
He
checks.
didn't reach into his pocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you not know that Congress holds the power of the purse? They the ones that make the decisions
Yeah.
about where money goes. How am I explaining this to grown people?
I mean,
But they don't know what Congress
That's what
you gotta stay in the house and the Jesus. So you know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, are you serious right now? Like,
No.
well, they gonna do this and they gonna do. Who is they?
Yeah.
I'm done.
So like, it's it's crazy. And even with the rumor that was going around that Elon was giving $5,000 checks, or he's going to give $5,000 checks.
I think you know how civics works.
Like, that's my point. I was like,
Civics.
who gonna give the money?
Someone
And they keep
that's
saying,
civics class.
we said Elon gonna give the money. But no, Elon don't write checks for Americans, sweetie.
That's like the unfortunately the general population, even when you have the distractors, like when we had that HIZ that travel around and they're like, oh, these books or whatever, we are so invested in spectacle that
Yes.
we're not paying attention to the really important things. Just like you said, we don't pay attention to detail.
And people expect us, they expect us not to be paying attention.
Yeah.
And that's when things happen, covertly.
That's what they get reelected over and over.
Yeah,
again.
that's when things happen
We have
covertly.
to start doing that because it's like, because there are people like I remember when I was talking to one of my best friends in San Antonio that was an artist, and I was like, do you ever like when we would have conversations, because it's so hard to find people to like have deeper conversations, because
Yeah.
I don't think people reflect like that. I don't think they really do. It's just like they're on autopilot.
I think
And
oh, never mind, that's another so.
and it's like, I don't think that it's necessary. I joke around and when I'm frustrated, I'm like, oh, we're done. But I don't want to go. I think that's such an easy way. It's such an easy cop out. Oh, they're just dumb. I think that, but I want to, I guess like this is the hopeful person. I want to believe that it's like
Me too.
ignorance or it's fear or it's
You don't want to think it's just apathy, that
That's-
they just don't care.
I think it's a combination of different things. I think it's like two things at play here. I think number one, because you mentioned I ran for office also, right? Even
Right.
though my race was not partisan, I had people tell me, say, John, I don't like Republicans, but I like you. I think that a lot of times we're so in our camps. Like people say, I mean, it's like, and I do agree. There are good people on the right and the left. There are people-
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like I think that unfortunately we've gotten so into like our own like camps area where it's like we think that anything like say for example, if I don't agree with one thing, and see, I'm talking my personal experience for a second. If I don't go kowtow with everything we're supposed to be for, I'm a coon,
Yeah,
I'm a porch monkey,
yeah.
I'm a sparrow. And it's like,
Yes.
I've said
it's like,
those things.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I hate my mother,
Yeah,
I hate black women,
yeah.
those kind of things. So it's like I said, dude, we're just having a conversation. It's like that. Yeah, I think that sometimes people are really sort of like staying away from those things because of like people don't like being difference of opinion because it's like they might change thought process. Guess what? We grow every day as people. You must have a growth mindset. We're educators. You must have a growth mindset. But some people are afraid of growth mindset because whether it's like one side's right or wrong, I'm not going to get into that. That's a
Yes,
time.
yes.
But at least people want to have a conversation. And to me, people, they're so entrenched. And both sides do it, right? Like, both sides do that.
Okay.
Like,
Let me throw this out here, and then we gotta wrap it. Guys, you did woof.
This is
Away
fun.
from us.
I know this too.
We always have good. We always have good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. I am very much in line with fiscal responsibility. I'm very much in line with having accountability in social services. I'm very much in line with entrepreneurs and people who drive the economy, being able to have as much opportunity as they can to be successful.
Sure.
Everything I just said would be, some people would say, all those are conservative ideas. Okay? They would say that.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is, my point is this: some of those things that I just mentioned are you. Do you agree with those two?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I would say pretty much most of them. Okay? We sit on different sides of the aisle. My point being this:
Mhm.
there's so much more we have in common if we do not back ourselves into a box
Mhm.
and begin to listen to what other people have to say and understand what their perspective is based on what their experience has been. I can learn something from from your life experience.
Yes.
You can learn something from my life experience. And we've got to figure out a way that we can put those things on the table and come together with a solution. Do you think that maybe not this time,
Mhm.
perhaps maybe this time in the next few months,
Sure.
do you think that both of these sides will be able to come together and figure out a way to redraw these boundaries that have come to pass with these vouchers so that each of those sides is going to be able to get something that they feel is going to be beneficial to them without hurting the other side?
Well, one thing about governance is that no one ever gets 100% what they want.
Exactly. That's my
No
point.
one ever gets that. So
Yes.
I think that what you're saying, it can happen.
Yeah.
What
And I actually think it's going to happen.
that's going to happen
Yeah.
too. But I think that
Because too many people are upset on both sides.
But you got to be able to come together.
well, I think the other thing is that if it's going to happen, people have to be willing to have conversations.
Yep.
And then also be willing listen to I can't talk. Be willing to listen and hear and internalize.
Yeah.
The last one's important. Internalize another point of view.
Yeah.
That's difficult because we, as human beings, sometimes we don't like being challenged.
Yeah.
We don't have. I like having our traditions questioned because a good prime example. I'm a Republican. My brother's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Do we talk politics? No. Did I go see him after the election for Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Yes, I did, because he's still my brother.
That's right.
He's been my blood for over 40 years.
That's
I'm not
right.
going to stop talking to people or whatever because of what happened in November.
That's
Whatever.
right. That's right.
To be honest with you. And
That's right.
people need to grow up past certain kind of.
Well, I think what it is in that regard,
Sure.
and this is just looking at all the YouTubes and looking at I think for them, for the not speaking, it's a moral issue because a lot of hatred was spewed out. And I think a lot of people were shocked
Feelings were hurt. Yeah.
that a lot of their family members felt a certain way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people felt like, I think a lot of it was a moral stance more than a political party stance. Because I'm gonna tell you why I say that. Because when George Bush won, I never heard people say, "Oh, you voted for Bush," and I have 3 uncles that voted for Bush.
And the thing about
And but we didn't, everybody had their political disagreements, but nobody stopped talking to each other.
Well, I will say this too, because that's a couple things happened. Because I talked to a couple of people. One works for the Democratic Party here, another one who's a recent candidate. And of course, we had the same conversation. And she said, and they both said, "John, that's crazy. People not talking to each other." Both of them said that, those verbatim. It's just an election.
Yeah.
It's going to go on. We're gonna have
That's right.
midterms. We're gonna have a presidential election 4 years. Guys, get a grip.
That's right.
Yeah. But I can't tell you, but you can say that, but if I'm telling you, oh, women shouldn't have rights or you shouldn't have bodily autonomy and your body, my choice. That's the kind of stuff that has stopped
Yeah,
families
or
from
even
talking.
But that was, yeah, we have to understand something. Many times, what we're seeing and what we've seen in the last 8 years, it's been very intentional,
Mhm.
and it's been very, it's
Because it
done
makes money.
with with an intent to sow discord. We're not even thinking about that. We're just thinking that this is happenstance. It's just it was intended for discord to happen as a result of it, and to pit families against each other.
It's crazy.
Because I will tell you this, one of my good friends lost her baby
Mhm.
and she bled out.
Yeah,
And
behind the election.
no,
Okay,
she
Talking about
pregnant.
right.
She bled out.
Okay.
She lost her baby.
Yes.
Her uncle, who is a misogynist to his core,
Right.
said, she was crying and she was upset and and she's been in a, she just lost her
Depression,
baby.
yeah.
And this is her first child.
Mhm.
And uncle says,
I think I know this is going.
yeah, uncle says to her and her husband,
This ain't right.
well, at least your baby died this way. You didn't have an abortion.
Okay.
No.
And was that in
But-
we got it
right. So that's
it's over.
that's the point. But that's the point that I was
I
making.
think that was, but like I said, it's been a 100% intent to sow discord. And some of the things, I have people that I went to school with in high school that never had any issues with them before, anything like, but you look on their pages now and the entire identity, and this is something that someone said last week that I 100% agree with. Don't ever let your entire identity as a person be completely sewn up with the ideas of a politician.
I agree.
Don't,
agree.
that can't be your entire
No,
identity.
I agree with that whole.
If you can't separate your identity from that,
But that has stopped her from ever speaking to him again.
yeah.
And
And it was intentional. It wasn't, the plan worked. The
right,
plan worked.
but it was. Can you imagine how hurtful that was?
Yeah.
So that's why I believe that families and stuff are speaking, because it's the hurt, the intentional hurt.
Because I have
Behind.
friends that we don't, and just like I lean really, really left, but I worked in a rural Bible Bell County.
Yeah.
And the way I see it, that's what keeps me back in pace, regardless of what I feel. And I even when I go to those things, every child deserves to thrive the way I would want my child, even my own enemy's child.
Yeah.
So I don't need. And I worked where kids said what their parents felt,
Yeah.
and I don't hate the kids for that.
That's
Right.
I know that it's that's what they know. I pray that they don't have hurtful thoughts, and I do understand with all this going on both. And one I feel more than the other with the spectacle, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying a Republican
With the-
or a Democrat.
Right,
It's
with
the
the spectacle.
spectacle
Yeah.
of this man,
Yes.
because I don't even think he represents himself.
That's
I don't even think it's a Republican thing. I think he's using that as, I call him he's a paper rhino.
Well, but you know what? And guys,
I
we
don't
got
believe-
to,
Conversation another time.
we're
Yes.
gonna have to close out. I promise we are. This is getting good. But here's the thing. I think that anyone sitting around this table, I remember when I used to be a pageant director, and one of my pageant girls had the opportunity to sing the national anthem at an Astros game, and President Bush and First Lady Barbara Bush were there. They, retired to Houston, and they were there, and they were delightful people.
Yeah.
Delightful people. And they didn't have, it may have been a Secret Service man around somewhere, but when they walked, he threw out the first pitch. And when they walked back into the little area, we were the only ones standing there with them. And my pageant girl was standing there. She had on her little crown. She'd already done the national anthem, and she was standing there like this. And I remember Mrs. Bush said, "Oh, Pop, I think that she might want to take a picture with us." Okay. So they walked over, just as sweet.
But they're personal people
But-
anyway.
and that's my point. It's not, they were, don't mix your politics up with a person.
Amen.
Because they're not, it's like,
Those were the most wonderful people. I was one of the ones who went downtown and took a day off when, was it number 41? 4141, train came through with President Bush taking him down to College Station. Okay.
Oh, when he passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took off a day because I wanted to show my respect, I would never do that in other cases sometimes,
And I actually showed the funeral in my class.
Yeah.
and there's like, and how you said, like, those are political beliefs, but I have family that's Republican. I have family that I don't know what they're like. I am anarchist. they're whatever.
Everybody's got everybody in their families. Yeah.
There is no such thing as someone who's completely awful. It's like,
Exactly.
I think that when you hear all the shouting, we get stuck on that. But honestly, we do have similar goals. Whether you're
We do.
on this end, this end, in the middle.
Just
Different ways of getting to
Yeah,
them.
we want the same ways.
Different ways of getting to them.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Rebecca, you're gonna get to close out today because you know what I gotta do. But wait, John, you want to say something?
Shameless plug first, guys.
Okay.
Please check us on the Black Sheriff Federation. Visit bcfaction.com. Once again, bcfaction.com. Check out the BCF. Come see what we're about, and hopefully you join us. Once again, bcfaction.com. Black Surf Federation. John Branch Jr., Texas State Director.
Okay,
Okay, and then
Raquel,
we're gonna bring you back because you have a lot to expose on HISD.
Yes.
Uh,
If you want to look at the photos and tell me what after this is done, you can tell me.
Okay, you have
I brought it with me.
Yeah, she has a lot to expose on HISD as a parent, and I think our audience needs to know because I think a
Yeah.
lot of information is being withheld from them. So we're gonna bring you back. Of course, we're gonna bring you back as always. So to let you all know. Okay, guys. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Today was a double feature. Yay! So till next time, guys, we can do it.